Hi, I'm Michael Hamby, and you're watching Indigo Herbs TV. This is part 2 of a 5-part interview with David Ash, nutritionist and author of Love Your Liver. Enjoy!
So, let's just look at the disease states that we get out of. I've talked about out of this problem of carbohydrate addiction.
Yeah.
Okay. The first disease we get is obesity, especially around the belly. Overall body fat is quite healthy. If it's spread evenly around a buxom lady, for example, there's nothing unhealthy about that. But if you get all the fat around the belly, you know, the skinny legs and the fat belly, that is a symptom of metabolic syndrome, of a condition that predisposes us to obesity, to diabetes, and to heart disease and stroke.
Right.
And these are the major disease states in the Western world, and also cancer. Mm-hmm. So, how is this linked to heart disease and stroke? Well, what actually happens is you get deposits of fat in the arteries, which tends to clog them up and produce the atheromas, which cause angina, which are the cause of heart attacks, and also the cause of stroke. Now, there was this theory, which was promulgated by the Americans in the 1950s, that dietary fat was the cause of fat in the arteries, the cause of cholesterol. In other words, they said, if we eat cholesterol food, we'll get cholesterol in the arteries. That's a very simplistic theory that is not fact. It's been disproved. The Harvard study, which was the largest clinical trial ever fielded, costing hundreds of millions of dollars, involving 59,000 nurses, has proved that a low-fat diet does not protect us from heart disease and stroke. In fact, it's quite the opposite. There are more massive strokes, more heart attacks on people on a low-fat diet than on a normal diet, or high-fat diet. So there's no link between dietary fat and heart disease. Now, I remember I was at the Department of Nutrition, a first-year student, and there was a group of 6 students standing in the hall where I was standing. They were just opposite me, and Professor Yudkin walked through, and one of the students apprehended him and asked him about the theory that, you know, that dietary fat was the cause of heart disease. And I remember John Yudkin, he was as close to me as you, turning to this group of students. He rose up and he said, there is no link between dietary fat and heart disease. There never was a link, and there never will be a link established. He said the cause of cholesterol in the arteries is sugar, not fat. You see, what's happening is the sugar causes the insulin to drive glucose in the blood into fat.
I see.
And it's not the fat that clogs up the arteries. It's basically the sugar.
So it doesn't matter how many eggs we eat.
No.
What's important is the peaking and troughing, because of either eating lots of chocolate bars or lots of starchy bready foods, too much toast.
I mean, I don't want to get into conspiracy theory, but you know,
go on.
In the 1950s, food industry was a burgeoning industry. Okay. And they wanted people to eat that filthy slime called margarine. Okay. All these so-called healthy spreads are not healthy. Butter's far healthier. It's much better to point the finger at the farmer, the beleaguered farmer, and say, oh, it's the meat, it's the fat in the meat, it's the fat in the cholesterol in the egg, it's the beautiful golden cream on the Jersey milk. I mean, you're a man from Jersey.
Yeah, I am.
Jersey milk, I only buy the golden Jersey milk because the Frisian milk, again, have got gamma globulins in it that predisposes to heart disease and to juvenile diabetes. Whereas the Jersey milk and the Guernsey milk, the Channel Island milk, is actually protects us, you see. It's much healthier. So actually it's very healthy to eat cream and healthy to eat butter and healthy to eat eggs.
Nice.
Okay. So, but it's not healthy to eat processed food, which again is flour food, food made of flour. So we're looking at cakes and biscuits and buns and all these foods that are creating these dietary problems.
Yeah. And presumably, of course, chocolate bars.
The chocolate bars, chocolate's addictive as well, very addictive. So the thing is, what I'm trying to get people to think is, when you say starch, think sugar. You have to understand that sugar is, in nutritional terms, scientific terms, covers a whole range of different molecules. Fructose, mannitose, glucose, lactose, dextrose. These are all different oses that are basically sugars.
Okay. Well, that's very interesting. Very interesting indeed. And actually, that was a bit of a revelation for me reading your book. Was that those starchy foods are like eating sugar, and that really had never occurred to me. It really hadn't.
One of the biggest problems, as far as I'm concerned, is bread. Bread has been called the staff of life, but actually, as far as I'm concerned, bread is the kiss of death, because bread is just fodder. It's just filler. It gives us unnecessary calories. It gives us unnecessary sugar. We just don't need it. If the only thing you've got to eat at lunch is a sandwich, well, skip lunch. Better not to buy the sandwich, because basically bread is just sugar and gut glue. Bread contains a protein called gluten. And that's the old and original glue. People used to use flour to make glue. Okay? So, the glue, or the gluten, in the wheat, literally glues up your guts. It forms a sticky mass over the villi projections, causing inflammation and celiac disease. Now, celiac disease isn't that common, but what is common is a sensitivity to wheat. Most people are actually sensitive to wheat. A lot of people feel bloated, they feel heavy after eating bread. And I've given up bread altogether. If I eat bread, I eat gluten-free bread. And I'll eat bread if it's given to me, and occasionally I'll have a bit of bread if it's nice, crusty bread, just as a treat. But I don't live on bread. It's not the staff of life for me, because I'm trying to reduce my calorific intake. And one way of reducing it is cutting out bread and reducing the intake of cakes. So, again, we need to bring in the physics here. If you have toast, or if you have a crisp bread, or if you have a biscuit, although it's made with wheat and it contains gluten, this time, because again you've got a smaller particle size and it's not gluey and doughy, okay, it's easier for the enzymes to get in and digest the gluten, break the protein down into amino acids, which are good for you, okay, in the stomach before they enter the small intestine, because the damage is done in the small intestine with gluten, you see. So you have to think the physics of gluten. If you eat, that fresh bread, that gluey bread, that so-called healthy, sticky brown bread, that is the worst for you, because that really does glue you up. It forms a gluey mass, and the enzymes can't get in to break the gluten down. You get it with casein as well, the protein in milk. You get a lot of food allergies from wheat and dairy products, because these gluey proteins are not properly digested, and therefore the body recognizes them as foreign protein, because they're getting through a leaky gut. There's a lot of candida that's causing leaky guts, and people are generally just not that healthy. So what we're trying to do is to avoid these proteins getting into the small intestine. They need to be digested in the stomach. So small amounts of cheese, for example, but rather than large amounts, not having cooked cheese. Having what they call the cutting loaf, which is having a dry bread, a bread which is a bit stale, which is a bit old. You see, we all throw out the old bread and go and buy the fresh bread. Well, actually, the old bread is safer for us. Right. Stale bread, dry bread. So it's just a matter of really being conscious of what's actually going on in the body. Yeah. But best of all is cut ordinary bread out altogether.
Cut out bread.